Welcome to another episode of Voices. I'm your host, Keston Jones. Visionaries offering information with clarity, expertise, and substance. We are content experts. Let your voice be heard. Welcome to another episode of Voices. I'm your host, Keston Jones, and with me we have another special guest. Today's special guest is Dr. Claire Green-Forde. Thank you, Dr. Forde, for coming on the show.
Of course. My pleasure.
Absolute pleasure to have you here, especially on a day like this, it being Election Day in New York City. So hopefully everybody out there got a chance to vote today because, you know, it's important for our voices to be heard. And I guess that's the premise of Voices, Visionaries offering information with clarity, expertise, and substance. It's an opportunity for our voice, people from the community, and what better person to hear their particular story but Dr. Claire Green-Forde. So again, thank you for being on the show today. So without further ado, tell us about yourself, you know, your upbringing, in particular, your background, where you're from, so we can get an idea of who you are.
Yeah, absolutely. So I am from Barbados, so shout out Bajan Massive. I came here when I was 12 years old from Barbados, and I have lived here ever since. It is definitely, consistently, I would say, a big transition and trying to figure out how I fit in here.
Fine. So Barbados, as far as a woman of West Indian descent, how was that transition, being a young woman coming up to this country? Where did you first immigrate to when you first came?
So when I first came, I lived with my mom's sister in Long Island. Okay. And that transition was really difficult because I didn't know I was actually coming to live. I came up here on what I thought was Christmas holiday and it has never ended. And so coming up here in the cold was not very fun, but the transition for me is one I still think I'm in. I don't think I've ever really fit in. I think I live between two worlds of being someone from the Caribbean who doesn't fully fit in because I left, and being someone who lives in America but doesn't fully fit in because I'm from the Caribbean.
That's a unique situation. I personally have a similar feeling of being from Trinidadian descent, coming to this country when I was young as well, and having to navigate in these various spaces. One of the spaces that I currently navigate in is the educational space. You know, especially from Trinidad, it's always a big thing for us as far as, you know, our family's telling us it's important to get education. It's important to get education. So what was that spark in you to want to get to the point of becoming a doctor? Like, how was that transition for you?
So, I mean, I think similar to what you just mentioned, coming from the Caribbean, it was not an option. You can't come to somebody else's country and not do well. That was instilled in me from the time I was a child, that I had to do better, be better, prove myself. And then particularly living in America and in this context of being a person of color, it wasn't even an option to not pursue, because we have to consistently do more to just have some level of normalcy or equity, which we don't really have, but it wasn't an option.
Okay. So what were the degrees specifically that you pursued, and why did you choose that particular degree?
So my undergraduate degrees, I have two. One is in sociology with a concentration in women's studies. The other one is in health science with a concentration in public health. My master's is in social work, and my doctorate is in social work. Okay. And I initially started out as a biochemistry major because I love science. I love biology, and I wanted to be a medical doctor. God had other plans, and so I am still a doctor, just not cutting anybody open physically, but definitely as a licensed clinical social worker, I've done a lot of work working to help repair people who are broken emotionally, mentally, and psychologically, and also who are dealing with the traumas that they live in and the realities of their societies, and inequality, poverty, marginalization, and oppression. So I think I'm still in a space where I am healing, but just in a different venue.
So it's great that you bring up, you know, inequality and marginalization, especially in light of what is happening in this country as it relates to immigrants, as it relates to certain policies that make it extremely difficult for individuals to have a pathway towards freedom towards, having the ability to be here legally.
Mm-hmm.
And so as someone, both of ourselves who came and began our journey into this country as immigrants, how does it feel for you to be in the position that you're in, working in this country as a social worker and having to work with many immigrants? What kind of mentality do you have going into the process?
I mean, I think for me, we are all human. No matter where we are from, we are brothers, sisters, and whoever else we identify it as. The atrocities that I am seeing happening in this country and around the world as it relates to people who are seen as other is quite scary. If we don't learn from history, we're going to repeat itself. It's going to repeat. And we are seeing those things repeated right now in the current climate of this country, with villainizing those who are from other countries as though everyone here isn't from a different country, because the only people who are from here are the first people that we don't even acknowledge.
Yes.
And so this is their land, their country, and all of us are immigrants. And yet we are marginalizing oppression and villainizing human beings who are escaping trauma. You know, a few weeks ago, I met a woman and she said she's been here since she was 18. She escaped genocide in her country. Yeah. And when we're talking about these stories, we're not humanizing the experience. No one chooses to leave the home, the land that they are from, the people that they know, the culture, the language, the food, the streets that they know, the support systems, and go to an unfamiliar land just because. Yeah. Throughout history, people have always traveled from one place to the next for survival. Yeah. And so I look at the immigration debates happening, and I'm concerned about the fact that we are dehumanizing the experiences of others and making it as though people are coming to hurt. I do believe that it's important to do the process to make sure that you have a legal pathway here. But I also think that we have to recognize the need for asylum. We have to recognize the need for quality care. As a social worker, very concerned about the conditions that our children at the border are going through, that the families are going through. Yeah. We've heard so many firsthand stories about the abuses, the poor health conditions, and I'm not there and I'm not seeing that. But we've heard so many stories. There has to be some thread of truth that is happening. And I am concerned what's happening on our federal, local, and state levels as it relates to advocacy and just humanizing these experiences.
Absolutely, well said, and I concur with everything that you're saying as it relates to I guess this country and how in some cases it's somewhat hypocritical, because when we talk about the immigrants that came through Ellis Island and we romanticize it, we talk about they escaped from different things that were happening in Europe, and we can name it. However, when you talk about individuals that come from African countries or come from other countries, we talk about it in a different way. Our current president refers to them as coming from S-hole countries and so on and so forth, and it just presents people or places people who come from those places as feeling other, like we don't count, we don't deserve the same level of humanity. So I certainly concur with what you're referring to. So your career is vast in terms of the experiences that you've had, and your current role. You're the executive director of the NASW NYC chapter. When I heard that you were appointed to this role, I was so impressed. I felt like, no one more perfect for this particular role.
Oh, thank you.
But before we even get to that particular question, how has your previous roles prepared you for your current role?
So I have had so many experiences in my career, from working in criminal justice spaces to child welfare to college campus, substance misuse, inpatient psych, outpatient psych. And so I think I've had such a well-rounded experience. And previous to this role, I oversaw behavioral health for the whole city for the New York City Department of Probation, where I oversaw developing the behavioral health unit for both family and criminal court citywide. So when you talk about taking on a role that I currently have, overseeing a whole city, I've already done that. Being able to network, navigate stakeholders, understand legislation, understand policies, understand relationships and the importance of building relationships, and standing in my truth consistently around those things. I think that if anything, the experiences I've had have solidified for me the importance of standing alone if necessary to ensure that my integrity stays with me and my character and my values are there that I also advocate and speak out for people who are intentionally silenced, including myself.
Well, I, for one, know for certain that you're not alone. As a licensed social worker in New York City, you are a part of a group of thousands of advocates, thousands of individuals that speak truth to power.
Absolutely.
So, with respects to NASW NYC chapter, what are some of the initiatives that you're currently working on, and why are, before we even get to that, why are social workers important to the various systems and so on and so forth as it relates to advocacy?
Absolutely. Social workers are vital. I wouldn't even say important. We are a vital part of every single system you could think about that exists. Where there are humans, there are social workers. It is impossible to address any social and human condition without doing it through the lens of social work. Every single thing we can think about, whether it's poverty, whether or not it is working in tech, whether or not it is healthcare, whether or not it is economic justice, environmental justice, policy, that is all social work. And social workers have been at the forefront and behind the scenes. Sometimes we're a little too far behind the scenes and people don't know it's us. We have been at the forefront of ensuring advocacy and equity for every single person. Our values as the National Association of Social Work, our primary focus is to empower communities and to help to promote the values of life and basic human needs for every human being, with a particular focus on marginalized and oppressed populations and those who are living in poverty. While we are focusing on everyone, I'm talking about the fact that our profession focuses on addressing marginalized and oppressed. Everybody who's not the 1%. So the other 99%, and even the 1%, because no matter who you are, where you are, you have you'll have some needs. But social work addresses every human condition that exists and has existed, and that is why it's vital.
Absolutely. And what are some of the current issues or current initiatives that your office is undertaking as it relates to elevating voices, supporting the marginalized? Because I'm very familiar with the NASW chapter NYC, and I've come to a number of meetings, conferences, and so on and so forth. But what are some of the current initiatives that you're working on?
So our chapter, the National Association of Social Workers New York City chapter, has a lens of race, diversity, and intersectionality woven through every single thing that we do. We understand that we cannot address marginalization and oppression if we do not understand race, diversity, and how everything intersects. From social systems to individual and community level, we have to make sure that we understand those, and we work to address those through the lens, even if it's uncomfortable. And so initiatives that we've worked on and continue to work on are advocating for social workers in New York City, licensure. Social workers may not know that it took us 18 years of advocacy to get licensure exemptions passed to ensure that licensed social workers are the ones providing mental health services in our Office of Mental Health, in our Office of Children and Family Services, to ensure that equity and quality care is being provided by licensed practitioners. That's something that took a long time. A lot of the work that we do is advocacy. That takes a while, and people don't know that. We live in an instant gratification microwave society, and we do a lot of work to ensure the profession moves forward, but also to make sure our communities that are underserved are moving with us. So we're also advocating for immigrants and for the humanity and just dignity and value and worth of every single human being. That's one of our core values. We have a very strong immigration committee. We have people who work with refugees. We have people who've gone to the border and who continue to try to go there. We're advocating and speaking up in legislation and making our position clear that there has to be a path that recognizes the humanity of people first. We also have a race, diversity, and intersectionality committee that also works to address issues. And so legislation we've worked on would be the racial equity assessment in legislation to ensure that every single bill that goes favorably before the assembly has a racial equity assessment, because we know there are many laws such as, stop and frisk that were intentionally targeting communities of color. And we're saying if we're going to have environmental assessment impacts, we need to have impacts on communities and what these legislations and laws are doing to communities that are typically Black and brown communities and those who are marginalized and oppressed. We're pushing for that. We're pushing for loan forgiveness for social workers. Social workers provide most of the mental health services in this country and yet are among one of the lowest paid mental health providers in this country. That does not make sense. We have social workers working 2 and 3 jobs just to make ends meet, to pay back loans that are 3 times higher than their yearly salary before taxes. That's something as a chapter and nationally we're working on. And we're also working on legislation to ensure that children are going to be safe and secure. So we are touching every single sector, and we certainly need more our members to join us. We need our voices. We need you to stand with us at City Hall, stand with us in Albany, hold your legislators accountable, because we cannot do this work by ourselves. And it is critical that we raise our voices collectively to address the atrocities that are happening in our country and our city right now.
Absolutely. Again concur. I'm sitting here sitting back like, oh my God, this woman is so powerful. And for someone who was raised by a strong, powerful woman, and who in most cases work with women, especially in the social work area, I am amazed at the work that you do. I'm amazed at the work that social workers do. And oftentimes I implore the men that I work with to be more active and to try to find better ways to get involved to help support in many issues that currently affect us as well. So next question I'm asking, as a woman, and not just as a woman who's a doctor, who's an executive director, who's an advocate in so many different areas, but as a woman, what are some of the areas that you believe are most prevalent for you in terms of whether it be equity as it relates to equal pay, whether it be how men are able to really be present when women are discussing issues as it relates to, domestic violence, or a number of areas. What are some of the most prevalent issues that you think that women are encountering right now?
So I can say that I can't address that fully in terms of what women are encountering. I'm going to speak for self.
Absolutely.
I think that as a woman and as someone who identifies as a woman, I have many challenges, particularly being recognized and respected in the roles that I've been in, being valued. I've oftentimes been in meetings where people have thought I am recording the minutes rather than actually being part of the conversation, often questioned in terms of my intelligence, my background. So I think women need opportunity to have a seat at the table that is not a tokenized seat, that is not just to say. I think we cannot do this without partnership with our brothers and sisters in general. I am a feminist in the idea that I believe in equity across the board, not just for me as a woman, but for people who identify themselves across whatever spectrum. We need to ensure that we are bringing all voices to the table, because I'm very, very firm in the need for equity and true representation. Addressing reproductive justice particularly is something that, because of what the attacks that are happening in this country, as a woman and as a social worker in the position I'm in, extremely concerned about what's happening, given what I know for communities of color, for communities that don't have access to quality care, for communities that may be going 2 hours just to get a doctor, or someone that knows how to address their physical health needs. I am scared when I'm hearing senators and leaders say things like rape is God's will. I am scared and concerned when I think of predominantly men making decisions for what happens to a woman's body.
Yes.
And so those are things that, for me, we definitely need our men at the table to listen and understand, because are we thinking of being pro-birth? Are we thinking of being pro-productive, thriving lives? And we don't have a society that is more focused on a productive and thriving life. We have arguments that are talking about birth, but I'm interested in what happens on the continuum of life. As a practitioner, someone who's trained in neurobiology, someone who's trained in human development and lifespan, I'm concerned about what's happening across the lifespan. And so reproductive rights, because that's a human rights issue, is something that's significantly important to me as I look through the lens of womanhood, as you asked about.
Well, it's amazing, because that was really my next question to you. Like, what are you really passionate about? And you've so eloquently, addressed that. So I guess my next question to you is, what do you do for self-care? As it relates to work-life balance. Many of us, including myself, we work so many hours. We have people that we are passionate about providing support to, but oftentimes we ourselves are not taken care of in the ways that we need to be in order to thrive, in order to continue to do the work that we're doing. So what are some things that you do for yourself to really unwind and just, take a moment?
Take a moment. So I have to remind myself to take a moment because sometimes I'm not very good with self-care as much as I talk about it,
Yes.
particularly in my new role and with the expectations that are placed on me. You know, people expect you to be everywhere and everything, and that's not possible. So I think one of the things I do often is remind myself of my humanity and my capacity. I remind myself that as a human, I actually need to sleep, that I need to turn my phone off, that soca, I'm from Barbados, I need soca in my life. I need to put some good music on and dance around. That's my wellness. Soca is my wellness.
Yes.
My spirituality and my spiritual life is so important to me. My relationship with God and prayer is grounding. It is the thing that helps me throughout the day. It's the thing that helps me connect. And regardless of what spiritual or religious group you identify with, there's so much efficacy and research that connects to how important that and grounding having a spiritual connection is to healing.
Yes.
And so that is necessary for me. I need beaches. I grew up in Barbados. The beach was 5-minute walk from my house.
Yes.
I need to see through water. So when and if I can, I will take a little vacation. And if I'm not able to do that, reading, spending time with family and friends. I enjoy spending time by myself. I am one of a twin. I love her dearly. She is the best human being on the earth to me. And yet I enjoy my alone time when I need it. You know, I have an amazing partner who I am learning to allow to help me with things, and he has been incredibly supportive, and he reminds me of my need to take a break, but he's also up with me at 3 o'clock in the morning if I call him or say I need you to read a speech that I wrote. So you know, I appreciate that, and also using my networks. I have an incredible group of, like, as I call it, my Black Magical Sister Circle, and I reach out to them, and the love that they pour into me, the support, the efficacy, the you got this, we protect you, we love you, we are praying for you. It is so important to have a circle of people in your life that value you, that uplift you, that call you out and into a space and honor your humanity. And I am blessed to have that in my life.
Oh my God! So, folks, you heard it here first, man. This is something that I think many of us who we work and we're passionate about the work that we do, we often, forget about just taking that deep breath and really, finding that support system. So, I really am glad that you in this way reminded me that I need to do more of that as well. So. Then we can go on and on.
Yes.
But I know you're very busy and I know you got a lot to do. So I just really want to I guess leave us with some of the things that you're currently working on in terms of NASW NYC chapter, or just in general. What are some of the things that we can look forward to coming from your office or coming from you in particular? And please share with the audience.
Absolutely. I have an incredible team at NASW NYC. I am blessed. There are 6 of us. They are 22,000 licensed social workers in New York City alone. We need those all to be members. We currently have around 6,000, and we definitely need more people to be involved. And things that we have coming up. So March 19th, 2020, set your calendar, set your date. We have completely revamped our Leadership Awards Gala, which honors social work leaders across the city. We're including this year a award for School of Social Work of the Year. We're also including Institution of the Year, so Social Service Organization of the Year. You can self-nominate, nominate other people. We really want to make this a much different experience, and we're expanding the spaces that we're in. We're seeking to partner with organizations that we never partnered with before. Want to uplift those organizations in the community that are doing the work without the $1 million RFPs, but are making significant impact in the community every single day. The next thing we have coming up is our 6th annual Social Work in the City Conference, which brings together social workers and other people in different sectors across the city and outside of the city to learn and to grow and to educate and come together. That is June 12, 2020, and we are also changing that venue, changing the space, and changing the scope and the ways that we've been doing work so that we can have more impact and to promote social work values across the city. And before I go, and I thank you for this opportunity so
and
much.
Please leave the audience
I am leaving you with this
wisdom.
word. You are valued, you are loved, you are important, you are necessary, you are here for a purpose. Do not let anyone tell you otherwise. It is so easy in the society that we live in, whether you're a person of color, whether you're an ally, regardless of what you're facing, for people to pull you down, because life is hard. It is not easy, but it is also not without accident that you are here. You are necessary for this world to continue. Your presence is a gift in this world. Please always hold on to that. Thank you so much.
Absolutely. So you heard it here, folks. Again, Dr. Claire Green-Forde.
Yeah, thank you so
for
much.
being on the show. Thank you for blessing us with your wisdom, and I consider you a friend. And hopefully,
Absolutely.
that network.
Even though you're Trini, yes.
Hopefully, that network extends to me, because you definitely gave me a lot of great advice.
Absolutely.
And you're pushing me to finish this dissertation
Yes,
as well.
Dr. Keston.
So,
yes, Dr. Keston.
So I would.
We claim that. We call it into
yes,
existence.
Hopefully we would finish, and by 2020 is my year. But once again, another episode of Voices, Visionaries offering information with clarity, expertise, and substance. I'm your host, Keston Jones, signing off.
Thank you.